It was the kind of night where the rain didn't just fall. It slammed against the streets, turning every shadow into a blur of silver and black. Inside a dimly lit cafe on the corner of an almost empty street, a young woman sat by the window, her reflection barely visible through the foggy glass. She was beautiful in a fragile, untouchable way, her pale skin made paler by the cool light above her table. But it was the wheelchair she sat in, and the way her hand rested protectively over her swollen belly, that told the real story. Her eyes were locked on a crumpled letter trembling between her fingers. The one that had shattered the last piece of hope she had. Somewhere between the lines of cold, inked words, her father, a man who could move empires with a single phone call, had erased her from his life. No inheritance, no home, no family. She was paralyzed, pregnant, and now utterly alone. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of strangers to change a life, take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your small action could help this story reach someone who needs to hear it tonight. Her name was Emily Grayson, the only daughter of Charles Grayson, a CEO whose face had graced business magazines for years. But in the glossy world of wealth and power, compassion was often the first thing traded away. 2 years ago, Emily's life had been a college of perfect photographs, private jets, charity galas, and the kind of effortless grace money could buy. Until a car accident on a rainy afternoon left her legs without feeling, her spine damaged beyond repair. Her father, who once paraded her as the family jewel, now looked at her with a mixture of pity and cold resentment. She had gone from an asset to a reminder of weakness, of fragility, of what couldn't be controlled. When she told him she was pregnant, his reaction wasn't the joy of a grandfather. To be the father of her child was not from their world, not a man of fortune or name, but a man she had met in a small town library while trying to rebuild her life. They had loved in quiet moments, away from flashing lights, but he had died before he could see the child they made together. Her father called the relationship reckless, humiliating, and a betrayal to the Grayson name. That was the day he told her to leave the house and never come back. For weeks, Emily floated from shelter to shelter, carrying not just the weight of her unborn child, but the crushing heaviness of being unwanted. Her wheelchair made finding a safe place harder, every stairwell a barrier, every narrow hallway a battle. She learned quickly how cold the world could be when you were no longer the picture of perfection. Her hands grew calloused from pushing herself across sidewalks slick with rain, and her stomach twisted each night as she wondered if she'd have to give birth in some forgotten corner of the city. That night, the cafe was her only refuge from the storm. The letter, her father's final words to her, still burned in her mind. She didn't notice the door open until a gust of wind swept through, carrying with it the smell of rain and the sound of wet boots on the floor. He stood there, wearing green janitor overalls darkened by the downpour, his short brown hair plastered to his forehead. His face was rugged, lined not with age but with the kind of fatigue that comes from carrying too many burdens for too long. His name stitched on a faded name tag. Read, Daniel. Daniel worked the night shift at a nearby office building, cleaning the spaces others left in chaos. But what most people didn't know was that he was also a single father to a little girl named Lily. She was 7 with a smile that made strangers soften. Daniel had learned through years of single parenthood that sometimes the smallest act of kindness could be the thing that saves a person. He saw Emily, the way her shoulders trembled even when she tried to hold herself together, and he knew that she wasn't just tired from the rain. She was tired from life itself. He ordered a coffee but didn't drink it. Instead, he quietly asked if she was okay. At first, Emily shook her head as if to brush off the question. But there's something about genuine concern, the kind that has no strings, no pity, that makes walls crumble. She told him pieces of her story, her voice breaking in the spaces between sentences. Daniel didn't try to fix her life with promises. He simply listened. And then, As if it was the most natural thing in the world, he offered her a place to stay. She wanted to refuse out of pride or fear, but when he mentioned that his home had a ramp and an empty bedroom, something in her chest cracked. That night, she followed him through the rain to a modest apartment in an older building. The walls were warm beige, the furniture simple, but it was the first place in months where she felt safe. Lily peeked shyly from her bedroom door, her eyes widening at the sight of Emily's belly. Within minutes, the little girl was asking about the baby and if she could be its big sister. Days turned into weeks. Daniel worked nights, but he always left breakfast ready for Emily in the morning. He helped her with doctor's appointments, never making her feel like a burden. Slowly, Emily began to see herself not as broken, but as someone who had survived and could keep surviving. Daniel's kindness was steady, not showy, and it wrapped around her like the first blanket after a long winter. When the time came, Daniel was the one who wheeled her into the hospital. He was there when her son was born, holding her hand so tightly she thought he might break it. And when the nurse asked who he was, Emily hesitated, then said, with tears in her eyes, he's family. Months later, Charles Grayson appeared at her door. The newspapers had been running stories about his missing daughter, and the public sympathy was turning into scandal. But when he saw Daniel carrying Emily's baby with a gentleness he himself had never shown, and Lily making the baby giggle, something in his polished, guarded expression faltered. He asked to talk, his voice not as commanding as it once was. Emily listened, but she didn't need his approval anymore. She had found a new kind of wealth, one built from love, not money. Whether her father chose to be part of it or not was no longer her greatest concern. She had Daniel, she had Lily, and she had her son. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it so others can feel its message, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us keep telling stories that remind the world that kindness still exists. Before we end, I have a special request. In the comments, tell us about a time when someone showed you unexpected kindness. Your story might inspire someone else who's going through a hard time right now.